Hello, YouTube. It's me, John Avenger, once again, and welcome back to Action Adrenaline Month. Boy, do I have a movie for you guys tonight. I know it's been a couple days. I needed a break. I had a rough week, starting with the first week of April. Has been a lot of uphill and downhill situations, but I'm back on, and let's do a rant now. Another rant because this gave me a headache. This movie. It's a 2008 sports action comedy film written, co-produced, and directed by the Wachowskis. Yeah, that's always a good sign after The Matrix. Based on the 1960s anime and manga series, that's another red flag right there. It's based on an anime that's beloved by many people from the 1960s, and a manga, which basically is a Japanese comic. And it stars Emil Hirsch, who's a good actor, but he's wasted here. Excuse me. Christina Ricci, who was always a delight to watch. She's a '90s kid that I grew up watching. John Goodman. The cast is not the problem with this movie. The main cast is mostly solid. Susan Sarandon, Matthew Fox, and yada yada yada. It's the 2008 live action adaptation of Speed Racer. And let me say this: these people were on speed when they were making this movie because this movie makes no freaking sense. I had a headache when I was watching it, and Warner Brothers, you should be ashamed of yourself for releasing this abomination onto cinemas. If I suffer from epileptics, this would have killed me, honestly, because there is so much CG in this movie. It's like hitting you in the face, like this. Like it is so crazy. It makes Into the Spider Verse look subtle. That had one scene that was giving me a headache, and that was at the end when they're going through the portals and it's like there's these pink lights hitting you in the face. That's a bad scene because of the visuals. Here, the entire movie is like this. Every scene, it's sad because some of the movie looks fine when they're not throwing crazy shitty CGI in my face. Like the sets look good, and some of the colors of the costumes and some of the surroundings. The environment's very clean and bright. For kids, it's a good looking movie, but the CG just takes me right out of the film because there's way too much of it. It gives me a headache. It's very seizure inducing and it's just like too much. Like you can't just have the CGI cars. You have to have the backgrounds and the crowds and the freaking sky and the roads. Everything is CG and it looks terrible. This was a year before Avatar came out, and that was also a movie that did not benefit from having like 98% CG and 2% humans. Here, there's nothing to be worried about because the characters are not in any danger. They're not really driving. The Phantom Menace had less CG than this, and that came out like 10 years before. And yeah, this movie just is awful. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. They rip off Dragon Ball Z. They rip off Mortal Kombat. They rip off I would say Detective Pikachu, but it came out like 10 years after this. But the look of it looks a lot like Detective Pikachu. They also rip off Phantom Menace because there's a lot of racing in it, and they do these this crazy fighting scenes that are like in the anime, but in an anime it works. In live action, it looks ridiculous. It's like these people are having a seizure or something. It's ridiculous. The movie costs $120 million. That's more than the Snyder Cut, guys. Think about that. And it made 93 million. It deserved to flop. Good God, this was hard to watch. This came out the week after Iron Man. In Nokia Theater, it came out in April of 2008, but in the US, it came out May 9th. That was right after Iron Man. That movie had less CG than this. At least when Tony Stark is talking to Pepper or to Rhodey or to freaking Obadiah Smith or Stain, not Obadiah Smith. That's somebody else. It's really them talking in a location. It's not like tons of CG in my face. It was just too much. Michael Giacchino's score is okay. The acting is fine for what it is for most of the foreign actors. Why does this movie have foreign actors in it? This is a movie based on an anime. This is not a freaking Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I swear, half of the people in this movie have an accent, and it doesn't make any sense. Because you have there's some Japanese people because the anime. You have Hiroyuki Sanada. He was in Endgame. He was that Japanese guy. Richard Roundtree's in the movie. Shaft. He's barely in it. You have Yunnan. She was in the second Expendables movie. And then you have all these British guys. Why were they in the movie? They're there to fill time. And the movie, good God, is way too long. This movie is way too long. Usually a kid's movie like this is an hour and a half or an hour and 40 minutes. This movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes. I am like, holy shit, this movie is too long. It felt like 2.5 hours. This is like if The Last Jedi had a bunch of racing in it for like 30 minutes and then just, had an incoherent plot. And basically that was what it is, but it was longer. Here, this came out 10 years before The Last Jedi, and I'm like, this is worse because this gave me a headache. And there is no plot. There's so many flashbacks in this movie that it's incoherent. It's like every 2 seconds, Speed Racer has a flashback of when he was a kid, and then it's repressed memories over and over and over and over again, and it just doesn't freaking end, guys. And the movie is just the pace badly. Like after the first race, there's a lot of talking and a lot of stupid humor. The kid in the movie that plays, um, what's his name? The one with the ape. Not Sparky. That's played by some Australian guy, which I don't even know. He was also in freaking what was it, Jupiter Ascending, which is also shitty. That movie's even worse because that movie was this long and they had also had too much CG in it. Rain, no, that's the rookie racer. Inspector Detector, no. Spurtle. Uh, is it this one? Yeah, Paulie Lit. Yeah, he's the kid. I swear, he looks like Daniel Brawl if he was a kid. Look at him. He looks like Daniel Brawl, like if he was just younger and he had a kid. That's what his son would look like. I mean, good God. He was annoying. He was hopped up on sugar the whole movie. Because every scene he's like, I'm like, he's stoned, he's freaking, he's high on sugar. The whole movie, he looks like he's hyperactive. It's too much. I've been hyperactive like that when I was a kid, but not like this. This is just way too much. And Emil Hirsch, he deserves a better movie. He's a good actor. If you've seen The Girl Next Door or Into the Wild, he can act. I've seen clips of him acting. He's good. He's not a horrible actor, but it just didn't work. Christina Ricci, yeah, she plays Trixie, who's just a token girlfriend. That's it. She's there to look good and talk. That's it. She doesn't have much of a character. John Goodman, I love this guy as Fred Flintstone in the Flintstones movie, and as a voice of Sully in the Monsters Inc. films. And he looks like Mario in this movie. He has a mustache, red shirt, and overalls. That's Mario, guys. That's not freaking Speed Racer. Susan Sarandon, Oscar-winning actress, Mom Racer. She doesn't have much to do. Matthew Fox is Racer X, who's Speed's older brother Rex. Again, it's not a twist when I saw it coming. He looks like Daredevil. He's like a purple Daredevil, and it looks ridiculous. And this movie also looks like a Robert Rodriguez movie where he throws a bunch of saturated colors in your face. He can't just be subtle. He has to shove the effects in your face. It's too much, guys. CGI effects don't make a movie. You have to have a good plot and a coherent one at best. At the very least, a passable plot. There is no plot here. It's just a bunch of people racing every 15 to 20 minutes into the movie, and a lot of it is exposition and talking. And it gave me a headache. I was like, can this movie please end already? Good God. And I was laughing at how stupid it was because it made no sense. And what happens in Vegas is probably a masterpiece compared to this movie. The critical consensus, they were too kind. I'm sorry. Overloaded with headache inducing special effects. You're right about that one. Speed Racer finds the Wachowskis focused on visuals, thrills at the expense of a coherent storyline. That I also agree with. But they forgot to mention that this movie would make no freaking sense and it's off its meds. The whole movie makes no sense. There's a scene where there's a ninja trying to beat him up and trying to inject him with poison, and that goes on for way too long, and it's a ripoff of Mortal Kombat. And there's no blood or anything because the movie's a PG, so there's hardly any violence. And this is why the Wachowskis should have stuck with an R rating, because with PG or PG-13, they can't do it. They have to water things down and to make it for kids, and it doesn't work. The Matrix worked because it wasn't for kids. Here, there's just a lot of crazy shit just thrown in your face, and it's just too much. And the anime wasn't this crazy. I've seen clips of the anime. It was not a bunch of CGI thrown in my face because there was no CGI in the '60s. And this movie has a cult following. The Evil Dead movies are better than this, and that would have a shoestring budget. It probably denies entry into the ultra bright world to an all but gamers. This movie would have been a great video game, but as a movie, as a live action adaptation, it fails. He criticized that the story and the characters are tossed aside towards the wearying racing. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that the movie goes on for way too long. Excuse me. Yeah, The film just goes on. It feels long. It doesn't feel epic. They try to make it epic, and I'm like, why would you make a movie based on an anime that what kids have not been? It hasn't been popular in decades. It's not like they made a Speed Racer cartoon like in the early '90s. Underrated. This no, an underrated movie in 2008 is not this. The Incredible Hulk is more underrated. That had CG, but not every frame of the movie was CG. This makes Sharknado look better. This movie makes the Sharknado films look like they're made by freaking Disney in comparison with the CG. It's just horrible. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. This film was nominated for a Razzie for worst prequel, remake, ripoff, or sequel. You got that right. This is one of the worst adaptations of an anime I've ever seen. And people shit on Ghost in the Shell. At least that movie was shorter than this. And while Scarlett Johansson was not the best person for the job, at least she was trying. Here, the lead is good, but it's just he has nothing to work with. He's had to be with a bunch of green screens, looking at nothing. It's not there, guys. It looks fake. It looks like a video game. And there was going to be a sequel. How to have more seizure-inducing special effects like this? Roger Allam's portrayal of Arnold Royalton was praised. He's a horrible actor. He looks like a British Al Gore, and he didn't do anything for me. And it's just like, I knew there was going to be problems when I saw the trailer because I'm like, this doesn't even look like the cartoon. And I've only seen clips of it. But again, you did an Americanized version of the cartoon with a bunch of British actors in it too. Why? That wasn't going to bring in the crowds. And who wrote this movie? The Wachowskis. Yeah, you don't know the first thing about how to do a live action anime. This is not how you do it. Throwing a bunch of CG in my face. You could have done the car CG and the tracks could have been practical. You could have done that. Lucas did that with the prequels, with the freaking pod race in the original Phantom Menace movie. You didn't need everything to be CG. This is the kind of CG that bothers me when they throw so much of it in your face that it just looks like shit. And look at what it says. The film received mostly negative reviews. You think? Mostly it should have all been negative because there's nothing good for a kid. Little kids will eat this up if they have a freaking attention deficit disorder like I do, or they have Tourette's or something. Yeah, the film received praise for its action sequences. Again, they could have been done better if it wasn't all this CG. Cinematography, it's shot well. Like I said, the practical stuff looks nice. The cast, but criticizes screenplay and running time. You think? The screenplay's awful. Everybody acts like they're in a cartoon and it's a live action movie. And then the runtime, 2 hours and 15 minutes is too long. For a Marvel movie, I can handle that. But for a freaking Warner Brothers movie for kids, this is longer than almost half of the Harry Potter movies. I don't have all day to see a freaking movie, guys. Make your movie 90 minutes or 95 minutes, get your shit done, and end it. Don't freaking waste my time with freaking 20 minutes of talking. This is what plagued Wonder Woman 84. It was too freaking long. Snyder Cut, amazing, but there's way too much of it. It's too much dialogue in the beginning and at the very end. You have to cut things down. You got to stop making these movies overly long. Detective Pikachu was about 90 minutes, maybe an hour and 40 with the end credits. It was not freaking 2 hours and 15 minutes. Sonic the Hedgehog, better freaking movie based on a video game from Japan, and it freaking nailed it. It was funny. It was colorful. I can see the action. It wasn't just all CG because Robotnik was mostly, Jim Carrey in the role. It wasn't just a bunch of CG. It was way better than this. The prequels of Star Wars were better than this. Star Trek Beyond was better than this. Even Cars, and I don't like Cars. That's the worst Pixar movie I've ever seen. But it was not 2 hours and 15 minutes. How long was Cars? Like 2 hours? Cars. I don't understand it. This is the worst freaking movie I've seen based on an anime. I haven't seen Dragon Ball Evolution, but hey, that's not based on anything. It has the name Dragon Ball, but it's not even Goku's supposed to be a kid, not 18. You freaking idiots. Cars was under 2 hours, so Cars gets the pass for the running time. An hour and 57 minutes. Too long, but not 2 hours. This is 2 hours and 15 minutes. You will feel every single second. And if you say this movie's decent, I don't know what to tell you because this movie is too crazy. Too freaking crazy. And I just saw the Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode yesterday. This was crazier because everything's going. This is like a freaking Looney Tunes if it was on ecstasy or crystal meth or something. Is it just something? Somebody was on some substances when they made this movie. Not just the Wachowskis, but also the producers. Who produced this? Joel Silver. Isn't that the same guy that did um he did the Warriors back in the 70s. That was not as crazy as this. There's no CGI in that movie. Yeah, he did Hudson Hawk, that fucking shitty movie with Bruce Willis, where again it's a cartoon and it's a bad cartoon. Silver, you should get your money back because this was not worth an investment. It sucked, it bombed, and it deserved to. Grant Hill is an Australian filmmaker. Oh, of course, that's why there were so many freaking foreigners in this movie. I give up, man. These movies are just shitty. And he also produced Cloud Atlas and Jupiter Ascending. Wachowskis, if you ruined the fourth Matrix, I'm done with you. I'm never going to watch one of your films ever again. And the fact that you went from grown ass men to a bunch of freaking transgender, yeah, that wasn't cool either. Accept who you are, because that trying to pretend to be something you're not isn't going to get you anywhere. That's why your career's tanked before you became women. Yeah, kiss my ass, Wachowskis. The Russo's brothers are better than you because they'll stay as men and they know who they are, and they don't. They're not high off of drugs when they came up with the MCU films like Winter Soldier and Civil War and Infinity War and Endgame. You think Infinity War is a shitty film? That has a plot. That has better action. That's a long movie, but it has a lot of freaking moments that made me cream my pants. This, I got a headache. I'm like, please just end already. Just stop with the freaking driving. I don't even like driving. It's dangerous, especially during COVID. This movie is one of the worst movies of 2008. Like, because not the worst written, but one of the most like visually stimulated freaking movies I've ever seen. And just it's just painful to watch and so long. Even bad movies like Disaster Movie is the worst movie of 2008. It is, but it's short. It's not 2 hours and 15 minutes. Other bad movies in 2008, Twilight. Yeah, that was horrible, but it's shorter than this. The freaking what else came out in 2008 that was terrible? The Day the Earth Stood Still remake. Bad, but it's not 2 hours and 15 minutes. If you're gonna bore me in a shorter time. Don't waste 2 hours of my life. This is time I'll never get back, but thankfully it bombed. It'll never get a sequel, and I hope to God that here's the thing, Hollywood. We don't want to see beloved animes turn into garbage. You've screwed it up many times. Alita also failed, and I heard that it was good, but I just after seeing this, I need some time. Freaking Dragon Ball Evolution, this movie, it's too much. You can't make it like the anime, then don't do it at all. Even Attack on Titan, I think they did like a live action version a few years ago, and it also failed. Do it like the cartoon or don't do it at all, because I'm sick and tired of this. This is why all the Pokemon movies were animated, except for Detective Pikachu. But they didn't make Ash live action. They did something different. They put the Pokemon in the real world and it blended well. And there was a plot and it wasn't like incoherent. It was convoluted, but it wasn't incoherent. Here, don't see this movie, guys. If you've never seen it, Josh, Anthony, Tevia, whoever you guys, whoever's watching this video, Evan, please don't watch this movie. It will give you a headache. And if you have problems, if you have some issues, this is going to make it trigger it even worse. Dune will not have this problem. That's the last time I'm going to talk about Dune until October because that's not going to be incoherent. And it's not going to have a bunch of CGI in my face. Sorry. It's not. This was just absolutely atrocious. Like, I don't know what the hell they were thinking. If I saw this back in the theater in 2008, I would have wanted my money back because I'm like, this almost killed me. Like, good God, I thought Rogue One was bad. At least it wasn't. It was almost the same running time, but it wasn't as incoherent as this. It just had horrible characters. It's too downbeat and it's too long. But this was worse than Rogue One. I can say it. Because at least in that movie everybody dies, so I don't have to deal with them again. This is based on a beloved property and they've ruined it. But thankfully it's over. Don't see Speed Racer 2008. It's horrible. It will give you a headache, and if you suffer from seizures, don't ever watch it. You will not make it past the first 5 minutes. What a waste of a movie, man. Over $100 million on an anime that nobody has watched since the 60s. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Take care, and hopefully the next movie I'll get through it a lot better than this, because this was painful. Later.